There's this idea that if you just save and invest long enough, eventually your money starts working harder than you do. But does it ever feel like you're saving every month, but your money just doesn't seem to grow? Like you're pushing a huge boulder uphill and it barely moves. That's the story for most people who are trying to build their portfolio. Hi, my name is Chris Cebulski, and I help people like you retire with dignity, purpose, and their eyes set on the future. Now, this is a newer channel, so if you could drop a like and comment, I really appreciate it. So, people are waiting for that tipping point, but what most people don't realize is that there's not just one moment when this happens to a portfolio. There are actually three key tipping points that you go through on your path to retirement. Now, early on, everyone struggles with building wealth because the returns are small and the effort feels enormous. You're working hard, cutting expenses, investing the best you know, and in return, you're earning what feels like peanuts. 100% gain of nothing is still nothing. That $10,000 portfolio goes up by 10%, say, you're looking at $1,000. Whoop-de-doo. It barely feels like progress. But that's because you're still carrying most of the weight. You're the engine. The portfolio was just along for the ride. But over time, if you keep at it, something incredible starts to happen. Your money begins to take over, and that shift doesn't happen all at once. It happens in stages. It's said that Einstein remarked, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. So let's walk through these three stages to see why compound interest is so powerful. The first tipping point is when your investments can earn more in a typical year than you contribute. This one might sound subtle, but it's actually huge. Think about it. When you're first starting out, almost all of your portfolio's growth comes from you putting 2, 3, 400, $500 a month in your investments. Now, your investments might go up by a few percent, and while the dollar amounts aren't really even noticeable, right? Most of the increase is from you continuing to deposit money daily, weekly, monthly. And this is sadly the case for most of your 20s and 30s. Let's say you're investing 6K per year. Early on, if you have $10,000 invested and it grows 10%, that's only $1,000, right? Spread that out over 1 year, you're not even going to notice any upward movement. You added way more money than your portfolio did. But fast forward a few years and now your investment, say, hit 100 grand. Well, now that same 10% return means $10,000 of growth, far more than your contribution. Your money officially outperformed you. And that's the first moment when the engine starts to run on something other than your own fuel. Now, don't get too far in front of yourself. We know that investments don't just go up, right? There are plenty of down years out there, but even in those years, the savings you put in have even more power, right? Because the market's down. The second tipping point is even more powerful. It's when your investments earn as much as your actual job pays. If you make 50K a year and your portfolio is $500,000 and it grows by 10%, well, that's also 50K. This is where things start to feel real because now you've replaced your income. Now, these accounts might be locked up until you reach, say a certain age, but you're getting closer to being work optional. When you reach this point, you can really start to feel the freedom that retirement offers. This is that delayed gratification that financial planners talk about. Now, those coworkers who haven't saved but instead maybe spent their money on immediate fun, like going out to trips, they're missing out. You're giving yourself a level of protection that they don't have. Now, you have a second you out there working. They're working behind the scenes, but without a boss, without the meetings, without the stress, without the commute. This changes your entire relationship with work. You're not going to feel trapped anymore, hopefully. You might be able to negotiate harder for higher pay, take time off that you've earned, or start focusing on work that's a little bit more fulfilling instead of just seeing it as a way to pay the bills. So suddenly the fear of losing your job might not hang over you in the same way it did before because you know your investments have your back. Chances are in this phase, your contributions will increase, not because you're being overly frugal, but simply because that's how things tend to go. As people move forward in their careers, their income usually grows up, right? It becomes easier to bump up contributions gradually without even feeling it. Now, the third tipping point, the final stage, when your portfolio is large enough to support a 4 or 5% withdrawal rate. This is when you cross into true financial independence. If your portfolio is at $1.5 million, 4% of that is 60K. That 4% rule basically says this is the amount that you can safely withdraw from your account for the rest of your life. Now, you have a base of income to plan your retirement budget around. You can start to add goals like travel, hobbies, buying toys for yourself, or separating from work. Imagine waking up and deciding what you want to do that day, not because you have to clock in, but because you want to. You might still choose to work, and a lot of people do, but now it's your choice and it's not a requirement. So after this third tipping point, you could stop saving entirely and still grow richer just from the returns alone, right? But at this point, your portfolio becomes self sustaining. It's a machine, right? And this is what's most surprising is how fast things tend to move once you reach this threshold. Now, this is where some decisions have to be made, right? Usually you hit this point in your 50s and your portfolio was in an aggressive growth phase to this point. Now you understand that you have enough and market risk gets really real fast. One decision you have to make is, do you keep trying to grow it the same as you have before, or do you try to preserve it? All of a sudden, market commentary, tax policy, and company earnings reports become relevant, right? It's easy when you pass this point to listen to that noise, to make drastic changes and have a lot of stress pop up. Remember, this portfolio is your lifeline to freedom, right? The other decision might be to let that portfolio keep growing by taking the same risk you've taken in years before. Suddenly you're up a million in just a few years. Maybe you're up 2 million. It seems impossible until it happens, but once your money is compounding faster than you can spend it, the growth becomes exponential. But again, a word of caution, because when you lose 20% and your portfolio is 50K, that loss wasn't too bad. But 20% loss on a $2 million portfolio can be heartbreaking. So, this third tipping point, or gate, if you will, is where you have to be careful. This is where most people come to people like me. There's a point where professional management is critical to making sure you get over that last hump. So, instead of investing blindly, we're giving our money purpose, making buckets, guardrails, goals, right? Now, compound interest has a funny way of being incredibly slow before it gets insanely fast. Now, where do people fail in saving? Getting started is the hardest, period. Early on, you're barely getting by, and saving an extra $100 a month could be the difference between a nice meal or a nice outfit. So, saving here takes willpower and discipline. Now, in that second phase where savings rates usually go up, for some, they stall out. Their spending increases, but their savings decline. You're married, you might have kids, you have more expensive tastes, or you had lifestyle creep, right? Stalling out this phase can be brutal. You have a nice little nest egg, but your lifestyle costs increase so much that you can't depend on that nest egg to support you. And finally, in that third phase, a lot of people get too nervous. They take out all of their investments. They try to time the market. They run for the hills when things get tough because they'll say, I don't have time to recover. Growth is rarely instant. Savings, it takes guts, it takes discipline, consistency, and a willingness to play the long game. You'll go through market dips, which are, sometimes seemingly never ending. You'll lose jobs, have unplanned expenses that set you back months or years, and you're going to have a lot of personal doubts. But once you reach that point where your portfolio is sustaining you, it stops being just about money. It's about freedom. The freedom to decide how you spend your time, to work because you want to. Now, if you reach that point where your portfolio is getting too big for you to handle, give me a call. If you're worried about the markets and how to exit the crazy world of the 9 to 5, please reach out. I'd love to look over your situation, see if I can lend a hand. And again, thank you for watching today. Please leave a comment below about what stage you're in and if you're having problems saving, stalling out, or worried about the market. Have a great day.